pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Entertain a motion to declare an open meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
It's been first and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed nay. Motion carries 6-0. Opens meeting minutes act is posted on the door back there. Roll call. Wyatt.
Here.
Tim.
Yes.
Lance.
Yes.
Jim. Deb.
Yes.
Myself here. We'll now approve the agenda. Do we have any changes that we need to make on that? If somebody has a question,
I'm gonna move anything on the budget to later after, planner comes in.
he was gonna call it
Eight.
8, wasn't it? Byron.
Well, I'll check with him, he said he'd certainly be available by that time. So
Do we
if
wanna-
you need to, yes, go to, or I'll check with him when we get to that item, which can be pushed all the way down to 18 if necessary.
We can do it at that time after
Yep.
we approve it?
No, we wouldn't take any, we'd move 13 down, we'd just delay item 13. But, it can be, just so it's before 19.
Okay. Yeah, so then we can approve the agenda as is.
Yeah.
Somebody wants to make
I'll
that
move to approve the agenda.
second?
Second.
First and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. Motion carries 6-0. Okay, consent agenda. Starting with last month's minutes, there's 3 sets on them. For the budget hearing. Tax request and regular meeting. Actually, pretty short minutes for 3 meetings. Any questions on those? No, I'll entertain a motion for that,
Just,
Oh, no, we gotta move
Yeah.
on to the, sorry, my bad. Move on to the financials. Did you get stuff settled with the auditor on your,
On her activity fund?
activities
I
fund?
think she was pretty close.
Oh, she-
They put a lot of work on it last Thursday, so.
She was happy with where
Yeah,
everything is?
definitely.
Okay, there's nothing on financials, go to claims. And she did recommend to the auditor that we continue to get the activities reported every month and the lunch one too, so, which we do.
Oh, okay, yeah. Did we approve them at the board meeting? Yes,
Yeah. We never used to get a printout of them
right.
at one time.
But yeah, we've been putting those in there and approving those
Yeah.
as well, so yeah.
Cause there was a time we didn't even get the activities from,
Yeah, well,
that was
sometimes
probably before you.
there's checks needed during the month that, obviously going a month is a long time to do checks for some of these funds.
Yeah.
I try to hold all the lunch funds off and the general fund ones until we meet. Tammy, of course, can't really do that with activities, so.
So what about the outstanding checks? Kinda had an issue with that too, about getting that cleaned up. I mean, I see one of them's like a year old.
In which account? In activities?
Yeah,
She's probably working on that too, yeah.
'cause there's quite a list of outstanding checks. And most of them are this year, but some of them go back a ways.
Well, the old ones that I have, I think I told you about this last year, because they suggest that you try to, there's steps you're supposed to take, you're supposed to contact a person. If you can't reach them, then you're supposed to go through that Nebraska page, and it's $75 a pop, and I just looked at her,
A
I said.
pop?
I said, I'm writing these off, because because some of them were back from when Imogene was here in the lunch fund, and it was $106. It's like, if they wanna come back in for the check, I'll certainly reimburse them the money if they come in, but the
So
one
if
for
you go to the bank-
$1.72.
Can you go to the bank and cancel that check and?
We
and
could,
then-
yeah, because we do stop payments in all of our checks for free, so, yes,
And then we can get them taken off and they just have to reapply for them.
right, exactly.
I don't know, is that something we should set up a policy that if they don't cash our checks within so many months, that we automatically?
Checks used to say only good for 30 days.
When they're void after 90, I get a lot to say that. They do.
Oh,
No,
really?
no,
Well, when-
Come in, go on.
The ones that are coming in, the one like when you sell cattle or get an insurance check, it always says void within, or after 180 days or after 90 days. So,
So obviously you notice on claims, over half of our claims are ESER2, and then ESER2 expenditure that will be reimbursed for. We have claimed, some of that $230,000 ESER2 money, it's been approved. The request for payment's been approved, hasn't hit our bank account yet. Have not requested this $44,000 for smart boards yet, it's just got the invoice. So we'll be requesting that, and so that's the way the process is gonna work on these ESER funds. So over the course of, spending those funds that was approved in the grant, you send in, proof of payment, properly coded, and somebody pushes a button somewhere and money shows up in your account. So I've been telling Kelly to kind of watch for that. Should be any day, but some of those funds expended in ESER2, should start coming back any day.
Back on the activities, what was the travel with Barb? Travel expense?
I'll let you put in what that is.
Barb?
Yeah, it's
Was the music department.
music.
Yep, they're going on a trip in November to
Oh, okay.
Omaha and Branson.
Okay.
And that's the money they fundraise for.
I got you.
So did you get some tickets, volleyball tickets that we can draw for here?
Not yet.
Not yet?
I'll let you know. if
You'll let me know when
and
mine are coming.
And how
right?
many, yeah.
We take 6.
I've had lots of requests.
I'd hate to be him.
You can take Rich. That's it, good included.
Any more questions on the consent agenda? Take a motion to approve it.
That is yours.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Second.
The first and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries 6-0. Anybody want to speak tonight? Okay, move on to discussion items number 9. Are we supposed to wait for peace? It's be over before she
Nope,
gets here.
she, I guess, thinks we'll have a shorter meeting at some other month. I think she chose poorly.
Committee on American Civics.
Well, I guess I'll speak to it anyway. Committee for American Civics met at 6:30. Dr. Dorr, me, Mr. Rasmussen, along with Dr. Arlt, and our 2 building principals. We discussed LB 399 like we did last year, and all of our administrators assured us that we're in compliance. That's basically it.
Good job, Mike.
You bet. If you want to read LB 399, we sure can pass it around. But
That's why we have
a lot of
committee.
it's covered in our social studies curriculum,
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
And
It's all covered in our social studies curriculum.
pretty much, you know, they do maybe a few other extra things possibly. They mentioned that Gene Thompson came in last year anyway, some kind of, properly disposable flag, other things like that, but, yeah, that's about it.
Yep, and, as I mentioned in the meeting, and obviously for the public record, this is the only committee mandated by the state of Nebraska for local school boards to have and to meet. And it's to ensure that patriotism in American history and significant individuals in the history of our country, that they're recognized, celebrated to a certain extent, that they are covered in our curriculum. And I can't imagine that any school district in Nebraska would be out of compliance with teaching what is expected in American history and American civics, essentially social studies curriculum. And was just sharing, it's just a little ironic that in Nebraska we celebrate Americanism and patriotism when the pendulum seems to be the other end for some other areas around the country. But so it is a good thing. We're not very excited that our unicameral, that politicians are telling us in Plainview what we should be teaching, because the unicameral is dominated by senators from Lincoln and Omaha, who may carry different viewpoints, but that's you know the way that is. So so had an opportunity to inspect our materials. Our public always has an opportunity at their request to inspect all of our curriculum materials, but required by law in LB 399.
All right, thank you guys for being on that committee. That worked. Number 10, the budget committee. We met at 6. Basically talk about this renovation thing that we've been talking about, and go over the bids and what the costs were and how we thought we could come up with paying for it. I don't know if you wanna give what
It's-
you got back and.
Yeah, okay, and this goes along with action item 13, so there's really a couple of sides to the coin here. Is the project, which has been considered by the Building and Grounds Committee and the full board really for several months, air quality project for the 1977 building, both gyms, concession stand, weight room, and so we've, as you know, a lot of legwork to get to this point, so the discussion is about, is that project necessary? But maybe the bigger discussion that the budget committee, I think, considered was how would we fund it? Because there's several opportunities, several different funding mechanisms, as you know. And so that might be maybe the more difficult decision. You know, I don't know. Do the project is a decision, how to fund it would be another decision. So did find out that you know, we have another thing to consider. If you use some of our CD funds to buy down the total amount borrowed, we do have a spending lid that is, you know, mandated by the Department of Ed, and so that would be another piece of information I would need to find out, because adding $500,000 in general fund expenditures could affect, you know, how close we get
Percentage
to,
that you can go
yes,
over.
our allowable spending limit. So that would be another question that I would have to find out. So.
And we also found
Yep.
out that if we borrow that, or use that money, it's in our general fund, it would have to transfer to our building fund to use it for building fund situation. And that money has to be repaid in 2 years. So if we took a note out, and I talked to a local banker, I had him run some numbers for us. And they would be willing, they're interested in borrowing this money, but they would be willing to borrow us a 4-year note. We make a payment the first 2 years, and then we pull our CD money out, pay it off, and then the next 2 years, we replace that CD money that we borrow. So we could still, if we took it out right away, we couldn't pay it back the first 2 years, because we had to make payments to the bank the first 2 years. But if we make payments the first 2 years and then pull the CDs out, pay the note off, one lump sum, balloon payment, and then the next 2 years you pay back 2-year general fund to reimburse that money. So, and the bank would be willing to do that with us if we decide to go with them. And their interest rate was 2.95?
2.95, so
Would be the interest rate we could get on that money
about
through a
3/10
local
under
bank.
prime.
Yeah, it's under prime, and they can give some special deals to schools and those types of.
Probably get subsidized somehow.
Yeah.
Is, kind of a dumb question, but is interest usable by the school as a deduction of it is for private individuals?
Yeah,
Deduction for what?
We get loan interest in business expense.
I would, I sure would think so. I guess that's a good question. Are we able to deduct the interest that, like, this loan would accrue anyway? As a-
are we able to deduct it
As a write-off, you mean?
As an operating expense anyway, or anything like that, or
Yeah, I
any
doubt it.
tax incentives at all, anyway, on that, nothing? Okay.
And we need to find out for sure, because it'd make a huge difference how you structure the note, cause if you do it 2 years, you could have your interest all up front and utilize it that direction, and just have principal payoff at the other end.
Right.
The bank would probably prefer that anyway, cause then they're getting interest.
Yeah, they get paid right there, yeah, if it's usable.
Yeah, he said that he could work with us however we want to set it up, so.
We need to find out, 'cause I certainly don't know this thing.
It's kind of unusual to go through a local bank for something like this. Usually you go out and get money from, you know, basically they take bids from big companies that have money to borrow. And whoever has the lowest interest is kind of who you go with. They're really interested in having this note locally, and I think it's a good deal.
Absolutely.
Is it like Midwest or Madison or what?
I think Midwest is who. I know a reason, just cause I called Kevin to ask him to run some numbers for me and not even expecting him to be interested in it. And he kinda asked how that all worked. And I kinda explained what I knew, and he said, well, we'd sure be interested in
They
doing it.
gotta pay for that new bank.
So,
Which one?
Yeah, exactly. That's how you know we pay way too much interest.
so that's an option to go with.
But we're gonna put 400,000 in ESSER funds though.
We've got 400,000 ESSER funds we can put it, but we put bids out, or put it out for bids, and we got one. You had what, 2, 3 people interested?
Had 4 nibbles
4 nibbles?
and 1 response.
Only one person gave us the bid, and that's the company that was here and actually did the audit. They put a bid in, nobody else sent back a bid, so we only have the one bid. And it's just under 1.7, what they told us originally. So,
And this is for the things that you were talking about?
Yeah, the scope of
air
the,
quality and.
yep, the scope of the project didn't change from the discussions that we've had over the course of the past couple of months, but it's more precise. Would still need to get quite a bit more precise, but that really doesn't come to us, you know, those details, but this is, essentially also includes a lot of qualifications and references of the general contractor, which would be Facility Advocates.
and that's that electrical too, all that electric change.
Okay, I was just gonna ask, is
That's
it
all part of
included
it,
that?
yeah.
It's, you know, we're out of code anyway, within this building.
Well, that
I mean,
is
that,
big.
that was 400,000
Yeah.
alone, from what I remember, unless I'm speaking, am I correct?
Seems right.
Somewhere around there.
Seems right.
You know,
Without
we've
seeing
got
itemized.
We've got heat distribution problems that we wanna take care of too, and then we got air quality then on top of it,
It covers the gym.
you know.
Both
Does the gym and
Yeah.
both
locker
gyms?
rooms,
Yeah.
both gyms,
Both
locker
gyms.
rooms.
You know, so I know it was being advertised as air conditioning, but it's a heck of a lot more than that. You know, they're taking care of about 4 problems for us anyway, and, so.
Maybe buying some time off of boilers.
Yep,
Well, that was my
You
next
don't,
question.
you don't know that, we don't know that, but it would relieve some
This has nothing to do
of.
with boilers though, right?
it does,
Well,
it does, with the heat distribution anyway, what he's proposing, and he can speak
But
to
not
the details.
replacing the old.
Not replacing the
No.
boilers, but they're
Helping
gonna
them.
fix some of the problems anyway
Okay.
of the steam anyway going to the radiators in the old building.
And they'll only need to run one boiler to do the job after this, so the other one can be a reserve. So if one goes
Oh.
down, the other one will be a backup, or it can shift back and forth or whatever.
I think
So,
a couple of the condensers that they're willing to put in are gonna be able to distribute heat into this building here,
Right.
is some of the fixes of that, so it'll take some of the pressure off the boilers.
Yeah, just the junior high building is gonna run on steam heat.
Geez, they're starting May 1, and they're gonna be completed by September 1. That's pretty fast, considering what they're doing.
That's what the timeline was, yeah.
Wow.
really, the only way you can break this project up and do it efficiently is to just do the electrical and then quit. Because once you go past the electrical, one thing ties into the other. If you
Mhm.
don't do it all, you're gonna double up. When you do the second part of it or the last part of it, you're gonna have to change the first part of it because it won't be right. So,
Then we run into danger if we break it up, that something may become antiquated by the time we get to the next section.
We already do have that
Respend
problem.
again.
yeah.
And not to mention too, I don't think that even if we do upgrade the panels anyway and the transformer out here, anyway, they spend that 400,000 only, you're gonna have additional overlap in electrical expenses anyway, if you decide to break this up into different phases for those condensers and the heat and whatever else. I mean, we can get the big bang for your buck, and do it all.
Yeah,
It's just the way it is.
if you're gonna do it in consecutive years,
It-
you're not gonna pay for it all in 1 year anyway.
No,
Pay it
you're not.
Several years, so.
And interest is cheap right now too, so.
Is there any
Well,
way,
Interest is cheap right now.
You're
too,
right,
so.
yeah.
is there any way to determine the longevity of code? For example, let's say we did it all, can they tell us, you ain't gotta worry about it 10 years, or 8 years, or
I
a
don't know
year, or
if
this will be
That'd
next
probably
month?
be
Well,
yeah,
the
good
warranty's
question.
off, that's over.
Well, I understand, but I'm talking about, code, do they see anything coming down the road?
Oh,
What
as far as
what
having
dictates
to
that?
update stuff?
Like when we did electrical, it was fine, now it's not. When, is that gonna change? Do they have any idea when, or who do we ask?
I don't know, a lot of this right now, we're dealing with 40-year-old breakers, aren't we? And
But if code changes, you don't have to update normally unless you update something. As long as you leave it what you got, you don't have to change with the code.
Cause your grandfather did.
Yeah, until you make changes, then you've gotta update everything.
That's why we're so screwed now.
Yeah,
Okay.
but everything we got is so old that, I mean, it's a good time to do it anyway because it's so outdated that.
Yeah, because this area is the newest, right? This was built in
Sure,
77.
44 years?
77.
77.
Yeah.
On this side of the street, yeah. It's kinda sad that we only got the one bid. It's kinda hoping we get 2 or 3, so at least keep them
Why do you
honest.
think that is?
My personal opinion is because there's so much COVID money out there and there's so many schools doing projects that they don't need any more work, would be my guess. So you're gonna wait 2 or 3 years until they get all those projects done, so they're hungry again and wanna give bids, or,
Or is it because they can't get enough people to help them
that could be
do
it.
the jobs?
Too.
1.7 million is a lot to us, but that's peanuts to most
Class A
HVAC.
schools would be nothing.
Right.
HVAC company, or ESCOs, energy service companies. So it wouldn't be unusual that we would only hear from some local ESCOs.
Okay,
Cause where'd you say the other 2 were from? I mean, far out on the East Coast or something?
Herndon, Virginia,
well, that explains stuff. East West
and
Coast.
another one didn't have their address on their
That's right.
email. And another one was really a records request, more so maybe than an ESCO interested in the project.
I mean, we're seeing that around here just with the concrete work and everything. I mean, they're not looking for work right now, the schools.
No.
Those
no.
people that work on schools aren't looking for work. They've got all they can handle.
The only thing that makes me nervous is it like an honest bid, or is it, cause when I get, the busier I get, the more like I told a guy the other day for custom cabin, that I give him a astronomical number, because I'm like, if I gotta do it, I'm gonna make a lot of money, I'm hoping I scare him away,
The only thing is, that this is what they said it was gonna be when they gave us the
way back
drawings.
when.
And they didn't know whether anybody else was gonna bid on it or not, so, and, they had to give us a bid before they would know. So, if they gave us a high bid, they were risking not getting it. So, I wouldn't think they'd be too far out of line, but you don't know. I mean, it could be.
I think the way, just, this as well, we all been hearing the way inflation is going right now, and availability for electrical components, you name it, fuel, natural gas, energy, costs are going up, inflation is getting out of hand. If we're gonna do this, this is the time to do it. Didn't Byron tell you, Dr. Alt, that January 1, it's just a date they set, they're gonna reassess what the costs are.
It's a natural date for increase in prices of mechanics and those things, and you guys are paying enough attention to what's going on in the world to know that prices aren't coming down on anything anytime soon, probably.
Doesn't matter if you're talking about fertilizer, diesel fuel,
Commodities.
natural
anything.
gas,
Yep.
any commodity,
Yep.
no.
And like was mentioned, the interest rates are cheap, and we're able to use some of that ESSER money to help do it right now.
We're gonna pay for
It's probably,
a good chunk of this in cash.
So what do you guys feel comfortable with borrowing out of our $1 million CDs and putting towards this to lower our, our 1.7 is already lowered by the 400,000 ESSER money, so we're down to the 1.3. How much are you willing to borrow out of that, from that 1 million
What are you thinking?
to bring it down?
What did
You've
you,
already
what
walked up
did
to
you talk
the thing.
about? Did you kind of come up with a
Well,
figure?
we talked, Mike, we were following his lead here anyway, he mentioned $500,000 out of it, out of $1 million in CDs. And to me, makes sense. I guess it felt right anyway. If you figure that you're gonna put 400,000 in with ESSER funds, another 500,000 anyway, of CD money, and it's basically an interest-free loan. We are gonna pay that back anyway. You're paying for more than half of that anyway, expense of that RFP that you got there in your hands anyway, just in cash. Makes sense to me.
Do we do that, or do we do like 35% down type of deal, like we use 400,000 ESSER funds and then a couple 100,000 out of the,
But we can't pull out of that until the last 2 years, because we have to repay that within 2 years.
I thought you just said we were gonna have to, how much we were comfortable taking out.
Yeah, but we won't take it out until the 3rd year. We'll make, the first 2 years, we'll make payments to borrow in the money, or make payments back to pay off the note. And then we'll have a balloon payment, we'll take the money out of the CDs, make a balloon payment to pay off the note after 2 years. And then we pay back to the,
So you're wanting to take like the full 1.6 or 1.7 million on a note, right?
minus the 400,000.
So we have 400,000 down, basically, and then you're gonna borrow the rest.
Right,
Okay.
and pay it.
Make
Well,
2 payments on it.
Make 2 payments,
And then you're
and
gonna,
then pay
whatever
it off
left
with the
is
CD.
balloon it, yep.
So we're gonna borrow 1.3.
Then we pay ourselves back over the following 2.
Right.
Exactly. That's the way it would work for the auditor, and because the CDs are viewed as assets of the general fund, is what Mike found out. And so we have a 2-year window there to repay those. We're gonna transfer those over to the building fund. We can't cash the CDs in, put them into the general fund, and then write the check out of the general fund anyway. It has to come out of the building fund. That's what Mike found out.
I will, I mean, you don't have to decide on the funding mechanism tonight.
You're right.
Which I know you're not, you know, there's still a lot to maybe discuss there. But if you approve the scope of the project, I will work with the financial office in the Department of Ed to make sure I know precisely what we can do with those CDs. General fund into building fund, payback, timetables, spending limitations during our fiscal year. So I wanna make sure that we're just fully aware of, because that's an unusual circumstance, I think, for schools to use CD funds. I mean, we haven't, in the 6 years I've been here, we never even spoke of them. We just,
Schools
appreciate
don't
the
have
interest, just appreciate the interest, and maybe they don't, yes. Right now, we have about 1/4% interest on those, so it brings it into play. But I'll want to make sure I do my homework for you, so that you're fully informed of what will happen down the road if you want to use $250,000 or $500,000 or more of those CD funds. But that doesn't have to be decided tonight.
So now that-
I need to get you more information.
And there may be a better option once we start working with your local lender anyway, too. You might be able to structure that loan in a better way than what we're describing
Yeah,
tonight.
I don't have a problem doing it, I just, like, it comes back to my original question, are we able to use the interest in any way to the school's advantage, tax-wise or liability-wise? If you can personal.
Yeah, the interest on,
Borrowed money.
on what we borrow,
Yep, the interest we pay on the borrowed money,
yeah. That would be another,
which would be also fall over
Piece of
to our
cake.
own note by paying it
Yeah.
back.
yeah. Yeah, those would be questions I'd want to have my,
Yeah, 'cause
my folks in
the
Lincoln.
outside source is if you go to that last 2 years and you're paying yourself back, if you have the funds, you could jack the interest to pay yourself more. You'd be back in your savings account, you'd actually increase it.
yeah.
So how it'd be viewed from the outside world might look a little better, if it's there.
Do you feel like we need more than $1 million there?
I don't know, I mean, we're one of,
It'd be taxpayer money. that
it's the
we're
only school I know
using
that has it on
against.
reserve. I mean, look at all the schools we've talked to about combining with, nobody's got nothing, they're broke.
Yeah, that was my question, I guess, last month, and was the end of mine, was, unless somebody can give me a good reason as to why we can't tap into those,
Yeah.
as why they're just sitting there, and like Dr. Olson, they're not accruing anything at all. And they might as well go ahead and be used.
I'm with you.
And so, I mean, so,
That's what savings accounts are for.
exactly. I mean, we were looking for a reason to use them, and this would be it, so. And it's not like we're not gonna replenish them either, we're willing to make a commitment to replenish them.
But what we do need to do is use, gotta use enough of it so we can get our payment down to 2 years, instead of 3. Because if you have to make 3 years worth of payments, you can't start paying it back to the school until after 3 years, well, then you don't fit in that 2-year payback period. right?
So what do we have for the funds disposable, like how much can we put in, can we afford to make a cash flow to pay every year out of our
The
company?
payment, what would that payment be? What do we get?
Well,
from our-
it depends on which your building levy at. So you can generate $70,000 per penny. So we've been at 9 cents for 3 years, dropped to 7. So that's just under $500,000. So if you have a 7-cent levy with a $700 million plus valuation, I don't know why we shouldn't anticipate, that that's gonna change dramatically over the course of the next several years. So you can, I think, reasonably project that a 7-cent levy is gonna give you close to $500,000 to put towards paying off a note. Again, that's how we structured the elementary project, so, could just, follow that same line of thinking.
So we'd have to get that borrowing down to roughly $800,000, so you'd have 2 years of 40 plus interest payments, somewhere in that,
They might have said, I don't remember, did they say what they would be charging for interest, or they don't know?
295
$295.
locally, yeah. So,
Prime's at 3 1/4
Yeah,
right now, so it's
it's gonna
pretty
go,
decent.
do nothing but go up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Kevin said they have some incentive anyway
Yeah,
for
they
local
working
institutions
with,
anyway.
yeah,
Drop the
nonprofits.
actual interest rate, maybe they get a government subsidy or something, who knows, but,
Yeah. You gotta lock that as soon as you can.
Yeah.
Even if it's a handshake or signature.
yep.
Tell him 2%.
Well,
I just borrowed money for 1.5 on a combine, so.
Yeah, we aren't offering up any collateral though. That's a big deal,
You got the rest of the CD.
Well,
Yeah.
that's true, he knows we have cash on hand, and not to mention, it's not like we aren't generating revenue through, building fund anyway. as it
But,
is,
so, okay, well, let's say we do this and we increase the levy to 7 for like 2 years.
The levy's already
Yeah,
at
yeah,
7, we don't
So-
have to.
So then can we, after
We don't have
4
to.
years and we pay this off, can we like drop the taxes again or
Well,
not?
that's what we were hoping before this came up. We didn't realize we had this many problems left to fix before we had this audit. And we were kinda hoping we could drop it after this year. But then this came up and now we gotta decide, okay.
So
we
there's a
wanna do
chance
this.
year to year expenses go down. Yeah.
No, because my taxes keep going up and then my landlord's taxes go up and then they want more money for rent and.
That's the same answer.
Well, I think we're all kinda heading in the same direction, don't you think? I think we can go ahead and, I think, I think this is probably enough.
Okay. Well, if there's no more questions, we'll move on to number 11. Review board policy 50901, 50903, and 60201.
Okay, so 509's, class or student group gifts, so it does, this by policy limits the amount that the board can spend on, a gift of appreciation for any staff member, and so, we certainly don't, the gifts are what you have at staff recognition. So we're well under that. When we give $20 in clown cash, you're well under the policy limit of 200. But also, if somebody wants to gift something to the school, that would go under this policy. The board can accept gifts from a class or a student group. So if the graduating class of so-and-so had some extra funds and they wanted to gift some monies for a bench out front or something like that, there's some policy to govern that. So it's certainly, the language in 50901 is certainly appropriate. Wouldn't have any suggestions or recommendations for changes on that. 50903 comes into play only when you have a tragedy. And then folks realize that you have a policy after they want to maybe have some type of memorial for if they've lost a child who was a student at your school. And then things, are very difficult when this policy comes into play. But it does help provide some guidance for the school district to have some consistency with regard to student and staff memorials. So everything from what someone would or could donate, how they could memorialize a student on campus, how they could use the yearbook to memorialize a student. All that language is in here. Your administrative team attends occasionally crisis team training that deals with how does a school respond to a student tragedy, and important to have a policy. So when that happens and somebody well-intended certainly wants to donate something in memory of their child, that's a board decision. It's not a parent decision. Sometimes that can be very, very difficult. And most administrators, if they've been in administration for any length of time, have had to deal with that. But this language is appropriate in 50903. Do you have any questions on that?
You do see it, once in a while you go to another gym and they'll have a plaque up of somebody
Yep.
that they've lost and they
Yep.
have to do
Is
something.
there still a plaque out there in front?
No, that was for, I think, Becky Schwanebeck.
Yes, it was.
And that little plate, the whole thing was just eroding, because it had been there for 20 years, it was quite weathered, but the little plate, we returned to the family.
Okay.
So, they talk about that memorials should have a sunset period, so at some point in time, they really need to sunset. And so that language is 50903.
We're doing more scholarships now.
Yeah.
60201 is about school calendar, so it just identifies the number of hours that are mandated. So your school calendar always has more hours than what are required at your high school and at your elementary and your kindergarten. So, this is the policy that we follow when we present a calendar to you for consideration about the month of February for the next school year. You do have, obviously, authority over that, and what happens with that calendar when things naturally happen where, okay, if you have emergency closures due to weather or something else may affect your decisions. And so on changing the calendar going forward, in the middle of a school year, for example. But that language, as far as I'm concerned, is appropriate.
Okay, everybody all right with that? Good. Move on, number 12, board development, page 184, 185. Anybody have any comments on what they read, or questions or comments? Thought it was pretty good about, as far as keeping boards, as a unit, even if you disagree and don't agree with everything, but if you're in the minority, you, I guess, agree to disagree.
What a board is supposed to do.
You have a board.
So on that number 5, you could never take any action on something that hasn't been presented in a previous meeting, is that?
Yeah, I read
Is that
that
correct?
too.
Seems like we voted on things and we don't necessarily talk at.
We do that with policy, we bring it up for one meeting and then, it's gotta be reread the next meeting before you can pass it. We don't do that
Right.
with everything that we vote on.
That's one I have started by, just.
Number 5, you said, Tim?
Yeah.
5 on the agenda.
What would be an example of something that you don't review?
Oh, I don't know, like what we're talking about tonight,
But have we,
Yeah.
oh,
the
okay.
aptitude thing.
Well, we have talked about that in the past.
Yeah,
Okay.
It was presented last.
Oh, the aptitude, yeah, the aptitude. I was
It
thinking
wasn't.
escrow we have or something. Right, the
Yeah, I'm just
aptitude,
thinking something like that where we never talked about,
Right,
we're talking about tonight and voting on it, possibly.
right.
I see.
Yeah, that was new to me too when I read that.
A couple times, things like that have happened.
Well, there's a lot of times that we vote on things that, that's their
Yeah.
first discussion.
It's not always.
This isn't state statute.
No,
These are
these are all just
suggestions.
recommendations, suggestions for best practice. If there are anything that is mandated for proper procedural things,
Right.
like, public notice and posting Open Meetings Act and those things. Those are gonna be, included as well, but otherwise it's, recommended best practice, for boards. Because
Pretty
even
well,
as
I
you
would
read
do
all
more
those,
like this.
you can read through that and some of them are well, they're things that you can't measure.
Sure.
And some of them are decorum,
Yeah.
issues, but,
We slow things down twice as much already. I mean, it's already slow enough as it is sometimes on
Yeah.
this stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure I agree with that. Actually, I know I don't agree with that,
If you look, if you look at it that way, so
Yeah.
it's just a suggestion.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else have any comments? If not, we'll move on to action item 13.
okay, Byron is available. If you would like, Byron is from Facility Advocate, so if we're on item 13, if you feel you want to listen to him, or if you don't, I mean, I can call him. The discussion is not about funding, the discussion on item 13 is about the scope of the project.
You could kind of go through what they found when they, some of the units we have and the condition they were in and what they found and why you do everything at the same time, because it'll save money in this area or that area or whatever, so, he can go through that and detail that more, better than what we can.
If you guys wanna know that, I mean, if you're okay with it, that's fine. I just thought maybe with a project that big, if you know more about it, it'd be best to hear from him rather than maybe us.
I'm fine with it, the only thing I'm wondering is if we need to let him talk so the public can hear it.
I agree. I think.
If not even speaking, at least it could be in the paper.
Yep.
So, some way that we let our,
Yeah,
Community
he's been
know.
here, this wouldn't be the first meeting that he presented at though. Yes, Byron? Yes, if you're, available to visit, I don't know how well you might be able to hear any questions, we don't intend necessarily to have a Q&A. Primarily, we'd just like you to give us the Cliff Notes version of the RFP or some of the highlights of the energy audit, but if you can talk just a little bit about the scope of the project, the board and those in attendance here are listening.
Okay.
Just need to move up, why?
The first thing I'll start with is the electrical service to the entire building will be upgraded, including a new transformer, outside. So that is a pretty sizable portion of the project is the electrical upgrade. The next portion would be, decoupling the steam system, from the three-story building, so all of the 1977 addition would not be served by the steam boilers, so they would only run the three-story section of the building. With the exception of the steam heaters in the, shop area. Because of the way they're fed, they come off of that, three-story building, so that would still remain steam with the three-story. The project would include all new HVAC equipment, for the classrooms, library, and the classrooms there, and the principal's office. The steam reheat coils would come out of each of those rooms and two in the hallway, and be replaced with a VAV or a variable air volume box with an electric reheat coil, so that each room has individual, room control. The primary purpose of the rooftop at that point would be to provide cool enough air for the warmest room, and the others would reheat themselves to maintain their space temperature. Pirate Gym would get 2 brand new units, heating and cooling. We would remove the steam coils out of the ductwork, because the heating would come from the rooftop unit. Then you have 2 carrier units that would be repurposed. The big unit that has heating and cooling capability would be moved to the Tartan Gym,
So you were gonna go through the steam units in the old building too, right, and fix those, put some kits in them and stuff so they didn't sweat and leak and drip?
Put a real hard time hearing.
The updating of the steam coils or the units in the 1920 building, the 3-story building, so that will get some retrofit so that it can still accept efficient steam heat.
Yeah, now, what isn't included in the proposal that you have, we really should go to, the traps should be gone through on those radiators, and then just verify that the thermostatic valves that are currently installed on those radiators are operational. And that is not included in the RFP.
And if they're not operational, yes, how many of those traps exist in that building? And what would the replacement cost be?
Okay, I think there's, there are around 12 to 14 radiators, and a rebuild trap kit is around $60. And then if it's a thermostatic valve, those run around $200 a piece.
Okay, so nominal.
Yeah, and, that's something that, I know several contractors have like a infrared gun that gets you those trackers.
Sure.
Did he talk about the fresh air
So
ventilation?
that would be done more like
Pirate
on
Jet,
a,
how was it before we shot?
maintenance type
Talk about that.
instead of part of the RFP.
Sure, and the Pirate Gym, so the dampers, the new units, so we would have air quality, fresh air, ventilation, not just in the gyms, but throughout.
Right, yes, and currently there's minimal, ventilation. There's, the only unit up there that has any true ventilation is the 25-ton carrier that's going to be moved to the Martin Gym. The other units, the outdoor dampers are not functioning like they should. So that is really the only source of ventilation that you have right now, in the entire 77 edition.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Our bigger discussion, Byron, is how to pay your bill.
Okay.
So that, I think, I will let you know if the board takes action on approving the scope of the project. Funding it might be a decision made later, but, thank you for being available for us tonight.
Sure, no problem. I'm glad it worked out. Thank you very much for the time, and look forward to working with you guys in the future.
Thank you, Byron.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds
Bye.
like a hell of a
Drive
lot
safe.
cheaper than it did.
It sounded really easy.
Yeah, day's work, man.
Okay, is there any more questions or discussion about it? Anybody have any? Does anyone wanna make a motion?
We're motioning anyway to approve the scope of the project. For now,
For the amount.
for the,
Yeah, so it'd be a 1.69.
okay.
So if you wanna include that in your motion, you sure can, 1,689,250. 1,689,250.
Doing a not to exceed.
To exceed that without board approval.
You always have potential change orders, but those would need to come to the board.
Approved, yeah.
But you can make any motion you want, obviously.
Okay, I'll do it. I'll make a motion to accept RFP response from Facility Advocates to consider HVAC project options for the 1977 building and gym spaces, not to exceed $1,689,250.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been first and seconded to accept this bid for $1,689,250. Wyatt,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Chance,
Yeah.
myself, yes, Deb,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
motion carries 6-0. Okay, number 14, discuss and take possible action on purchasing Apathy to manage our online presence.
Okay, so I've been, thinking about the discussion that the board has had, many months ago about increasing stakeholder engagement, which is always a challenge, I think, maybe for any local board. This could be seen as an avenue to do that. It is a digital information system which streamlines our process of communicating with our stakeholders. Okay, so when you think of communication, a lot of circumstances are with a website. We have all kinds of information on a website, which is going to be connected to a phone app now. Websites kind of fade away more because everybody can anywhere can have all that information right here on a manageable, user-friendly app. That's what this is. A lot of local schools have invested in it. It streamlines the process for schools to push out information, any kind of information about their school, whether it's your school board minutes and agendas to students reading in first grade, and we want to share that, or information about a game or whatever. Any piece of information you can push directly to your stakeholders, who can decide whether they want that to receive those notifications or not, and how they want to receive those notifications. There's a live feed as well, which all your social media streamlines to one place, and so you have a constant live feed of information. If we want them to become addicted to information about our school and keep them connected to our school, and if we want to manage our story, this is an avenue to do it. We have a website, we have an app, we don't have a tremendous amount of traffic on either of those, because you have to go there, people have to go there and manipulate it and use it. We don't very successfully, push information to your phone, so we're connecting with you rather than you connecting with us. The reason that I bring this to you is they're promotional, as there is with anything. There's a promotional opportunity right now that goes away at the end of the month, so it would be, it's entirely up to you. It's an investment in communication with our stakeholders. Currently, we pay about $1,350 for our website. Per year. We pay an additional fee for our Swift Reach, which is our communication system that you get on Sunday night. That's through our student information system at Power School. So we have some other expenses that this would replace, but this is it's not cheap, but it's.
What's the bill?
The bill is
$6,500.
startup and an annual fee of $5,000.
Who's in charge of it?
Well, we're in charge of it, but they service. They obviously service it. Now, I might bring Mr. Schmidt into the conversation a little bit. He's as familiar with it as I am, possibly. Battle Creek's a user. Hardington, Elkhorn Valley, Bloomfield. There's several right in the area who have invested in it. So I've gone to their websites to look at them. And quite honestly, when's the last time any of you went to our website? I don't know that very many people do. The app can be handy because it's in your pocket.
How much of a burden does it put on the staff to put stuff on there? I mean, how much time are they taking away from teaching so they can enter stuff on the website?
I would share with our staff, I hope you never feel it's a burden to share a great story about what's going on in your classroom in our school. So it probably in a matter of seconds, take a picture, about 3 pushes of a button, and it's pushed to our live feed. So we would like our teachers to do more of that. However, yes, we understand that we don't want you, throughout the day and in the middle of class, capturing, and of course, we want to be careful about what we capture and what we push.
How hard
We
is it
just
to
want to
put it on?
control and share our story, the truth about what's happening in our school. We already do that. This would help us to do it better, to manage the conversation. So it's just, and it does help with stakeholder engagement, which I know is a board interest, not necessarily a board goal. So I bring it to you to consider. And that's, that's that. We're on a bit of a timeline, and those promotional things, they come and go, and they come and they don't really go away, but,
I don't know how many times you guys have been on here, but the last couple of years, I mean, to be brutally honest, I got it on my phone, I get on it quite a bit, it's never updated.
It's really
And it's
slow.
not. It's hard to get on because I can go to notifications, daily bulletin, what's for lunch, it's 2 to 3 weeks old. So if we're not keeping up with what we got now, throwing more money at something that isn't gonna be kept up by anybody any different than that's doing it now, seems like a waste of money to me. I'm being honest, I mean, I think it's beautiful. I mean, right now, you can see what's for lunch, it's on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, notifications, daily bulletins, all the news. But you go to it, nothing's ever updated,
so, but could you be more specific though?
okay?
So which part? So some of the latest news you mean? Cause the calendar is always updated, unless there's been a change that.
Okay, the top of the news, the last update is September 21.
Yeah. Okay, so, news information about the school, yeah, so that
July
would,
15th was the one before.
yeah,
I mean, there's no scores, there's no updates. I mean, I'm not,
and part of the reason for that, Dr. Thor, is, an expectation by the administration to share information, but also because it is a bit archaic and it's not 3 clicks to update or to share a news story. So yes, the basics are gonna be on there. You're gonna find what's for lunch today, you're gonna find what activities are going on this week or this month. But
Twitter
a
part
shared
is
story,
updated stuff.
yes, our Twitter is a little more routine. That would be pushed through this,
the daily bulletin was October 11th, so that's not too bad.
I think
So-
your daily bulletin should probably always be, updated on this. This is connected to our website.
I guess,
As well, so-
I guess, I understand the program's wonderful
Yeah.
and it's all updated, but I'd be more in favor of having somebody that's assigned to do it. Because if it ain't getting done there, it ain't gonna get done on the new. And you guys ain't got time, you're too damn busy.
Well, yeah, it'd be a whole school staff thing. I mean, everybody would need to contribute to sharing our story, and that's the part I think you're talking about, is we
Right.
haven't had a new story about, here's something interesting or new or something special, something uncommon that happened in our school today or in my classroom. That's not the first thing that our people think about is, I need to push this out, I need to share this, with our stakeholders. But I think that would be a good thing if we had more people, more of our teachers, pushing things out on a daily basis to our live feed.
Mr. Schmidt, did you work with us in Battle Creek before you came here?
I did. We had socks before, and I was the one like Tom in charge of it, and so I ran the whole webpage when I was there. And, the hardest thing, I would say, the thing that made this better when it comes to Apogee is the fact that whenever teachers wanted to put something on the webpage, they would just send it to me because they didn't know how to do it. Cause with socks, you have to log in, create an article, upload it, post it, and then go. When we switched and went to ThrillShare, everybody got a login account, and so all they would do is go into the app, create what they wanted to do, hit upload, it sends it to the webpage, to Twitter, to Facebook, all of it. So they didn't have to send it to me to have me create it and then put it on there, they could all do it themselves. The the other part with that is right now, like if Jen tweets about cross-country, she puts at PHS Pride, I go in, I retweet it again. Ann's been tweeting stuff about band, Taylor tweets about science a lot. Anytime people put stuff up, I have to go back and then retweet, resend it out under the school. Whereas this app puts it into a place where teachers can log on and automatically send it to the school's Facebook, Twitter, webpage, whatever it is, but it still comes from them. So it eliminates a few of those extra steps. And the inside of it, the web design part of it, so much easier to run for teachers based off of, instead of us sending stuff to Tom, hey, can you create this, put it on the webpage for us, teachers can do it and post it right away. So that, to me, is the biggest update, having been around it and used it.
So is that gonna like eliminate Tom's job then, or?
Oh, no.
No.
In fact, Tom would be delighted, because people like me, and now I can update or post something on the webpage to just a couple of specific places, but I asked him today, hey, I need something put on the webpage, you know. I could maybe fumble my way to it, but I just asked Tom, so, Tom would be happy that the staff could push information to our social media, rather than having to go through him.
I understand what you're doing, you know, and you don't, for you to do it is absurd. I think the teachers should do it, but, you know, they need to have a little symposium on how to do it, and we need to see it.
Understood.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm kinda concerned about is like, how like secure is it? Like, I just don't wanna have a whole bunch of pictures of our kids being able to be plucked off the internet by anybody, any Joe Blow. You know what I mean?
Well, it'd be the same as what we have now. We have pictures of our kids on our website now. So if we,
I've never been on our website, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
But I just use the app, but.
yeah. So that's a
And I guess,
issue in every
the only
school
other
district.
issue I have is like, I have some friends that Snapchat constantly what they're doing, like when they're farming, and it drives me absolutely nuts, cause I'm like, if you're really that hardworking, why do you gotta show us all how hardworking you are? You know, I guess that's my biggest gripe about all that stuff. It's just, I don't see Dr. Thor snapping a picture every time he cracks somebody's back.
Catch a fish, maybe.
I don't think this is about employees bragging about what they're doing, I think it's.
Well, I'm not
it's-
saying that,
it's
I'm just,
showing
isn't that
parents
gonna
what their
take
kids
away
are
from
doing.
when they're teaching?
Right,
Like if
yeah,
they're-
I agree with
I mean,
that.
if they're going,
Time.
just saying.
I can see how it would make things easier for, you know, them to post it. I wonder, like Dr. Earl said, we don't get a lot of traffic on the
Yeah.
website anyways.
Why are we gonna?
I'd
do that?
rather see that money spent, I guess, towards something to do with the lunch program, which I hear about a lot.
Me too.
That's what I hear about. I don't hear about people saying they want the website updated. That's my feeling, I guess. But I do think it'd be easier, definitely, having it all in one place. It just seems like, I don't know, seems like a lot of, kind of a high bill for something like that, to me.
I agree.
Have you talked to any of the staff about this, about looking into it at all, Dr. Roll, or
No,
principals?
not so, we haven't introduced this to the staff,
Yeah,
and,
just-
yeah, it would be, we do have some expectation of, we wanna share positive things that are going on
Right.
in your classroom. But we don't have okay, it's your turn to, you know, push something out or share our story. So through the newsletters that Kyle and Jen push out occasionally, you might see something there, and we wanna bring, you know, we have intentions to bring students and or teachers before you to share some of those things, just to keep us student-centered.
Right.
Because it can be easy to kind of wander away, I think, from those things that are happening, you know, on a daily basis in our classrooms with our kids. So, you know, I would probably want to maybe bring this back to you at another time to consider.
I think communication to our community and showing what the kids are doing, what our school's doing, just for the probably as important, but
I think your Twitter feed does a good job with that.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
me
think
too.
that,
That keeps us up to
Watch
date
that a lot.
pretty well.
we need to think about it, I mean,
And we're spending a lot of money other places.
because if you're doing this, will you have expectations of the classroom teachers to contribute?
Do you have any IT
Yeah,
staff?
and I think it would be, I think they'd be, like I said, they wouldn't have to log on, try to,
Yeah.
well, and right now they can't. Right now, the simplest thing I think that teachers can do is probably tweet.
Yeah.
But then we want to maximize the exposure of that, so that's why we have to make sure, and I'll go through and I'll look at my Twitter feed as well, and I'll go back a ways and see if I've retweeted anything that needs to be retweeted, so because I've got different followers than the person who initially tweeted it. So, we just want to make sure that we are maximizing the amount of folks that, see and hear about, what we do every day. Because most of it is worthy of shouting out. A lot of it, not necessarily, hey, kids, we're working on math today.
I
Well,
like the
unless it's-
accessibility of it on your phone and
Yeah.
just go right to it, I think that's great.
Yeah.
It's positive stuff.
That part of it is really,
Well, you can do that now with the website. You need to get on it and have it on, it's an app on your phone.
yeah, I have it on.
He needs IT staff. That needs to be off of his plate. He ain't got time to do that stuff. And that's the reason why it's not getting done. I found that out tonight. I mean, the program we got now is completely adequate, it's just not being taken care of. So I can't see throwing more money at another program. If we're gonna do something, hire a staff that just does the IT for the website and get it going, get it honed, and then if you want something different, come back.
But
Wow.
Jim, this would be 11,500, 5,000 annually, hire more staff, it'd be a lot more overhead.
Yeah, but is it being used anyway? I mean,
But if
why
it was
we could-
easier for the teachers, it might be used more. If it
So
didn't
what is
have to
our,
go
we have an
through-
IT guy, don't we? Isn't Tom the IT guy?
Yeah.
So does he teach classes or not?
Oh, no, he's not a certified staff member.
So
So-
why can't he run the website? That's why I just,
Well, he essentially does, manage the nuts and bolts so that we have one. But Tom's, as far as, posting new stories and those things, that information has to come from, classroom teachers. And so they would have to go through Tom, hey, push it. And there is some of that. Occasionally Tom will say, hey, I need some more pictures, I need some fresh pictures. So we do hear from him from time to time.
Who's this person?
I don't know. I don't know who that person is.
The development?
This is her, area of, apparently for aptitude.
I think it'd be extremely helpful if they would offer a trial period for you guys to use this. I mean, that 90, 180-day trial
Did
period.
Battle Creek have that option, Kyle, to your knowledge? Trial?
No.
Instead of just have to pull the trigger, write a check anyway, and
Yeah.
buy it, and you aren't sure you like it or not.
Yep.
Anyway, then it's
Yep.
basically thrown away. I mean,
Yep.
You wouldn't get any
So-
Kyle, what do you
cost
wanna
back,
do?
would you?
I don't know, but I'll just check into that,
Yeah.
I mean, what are some other options as opposed to an $11,000 investment right now, to purchase something that we already have? But is it that much better, for that expense?
User friendly.
Tell them we don't think it's worth that amount
Maybe
of
we
money.
get the
and see if they're
newspaper
gonna
to do it,
it.
they're pretty
Come
good.
back.
They will be a vendor at the school board convention, so.
Jim, didn't you say you only work Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays? So you're available Tuesdays and Thursdays?
Yeah, but you gotta be able to read and write.
Oh, yeah.
No, you can just talk and they'll type it for you.
Very good. That's always kind of-
you gotta be careful when you do that.
Yeah.
It's buying cattle,
Okay, so we will pass on that action item. Move on to reports, activity directors report. Wake up, Max.
Sleeping back there?
I was doing volleyball schedule for next year. Oh, so it's kicking off. All right. Let's see here. Fall seasons, everything's pretty much coming to an end. Junior high football finished tonight, junior high volleyball finishes on Monday. Junior high cross country's done, right? They had their last meet last week. Football finishes on Friday, volleyball starts conference on Saturday, then districts a week from Monday. Cross country goes to districts on Thursday and runs at Pender, and then state is next week. So everything in the next couple of weeks will be wrapping up pretty much here for the fall seasons. And then the Booster Club, I think, is gonna do a kickoff for the winter season again here between seasons, middle of November. is what they're looking at right now. I put junior high practice dates on there, a couple of possible changes. I wanted to run it by you guys. Right now, junior high girls basketball, junior high boys basketball, each of them have right around the 20 to 25 practice dates during their time. Right now, there would be 5 of them that had to be at 6 o'clock at night. And I know that was one of the main concerns brought up last year about kids going home, coming back to school. So I was just going to put those during the last period of the day and go past the end of the day on those 5 days. So that way they could practice till 4:15. High school could split one gym. I've talked to both coaches. So they would still get their normal practice time, but it would be end of the school day plus a half an hour at the end of the day. And it eliminates them having to come back to town.
That'd be
So-
awesome.
You gonna get any complaints out of the bus people?
Shouldn't, because normally when they practice, I mean, they're practicing until 5 o'clock and their parents have to come get them anyway, so between 4:30 and 5, I think there's not gonna be a whole lot of issues versus 6 o'clock at night, but we'll see.
Less trip over.
Yeah,
Right.
that's the hope of it. So I put that on there just so you'd be aware of it if
I like
somebody were
that.
asking questions
Good
about that. Booster Club. Booster Club had talked about doing, upgrading the scoreboards in the Pirate Gym, and I talked to them about it as a project and doing a video board. And so I told them, my goal was to just have the Booster Club do it. I didn't wanna have an expense on the school if we were going to upgrade it. And Toby King is the one who's kinda taken it under his belt and started running with it, and I talked to him today, and he said he had $45,000 in hand and $70,000 committed towards it just from advertisements. And so the whole project would be right around the 85,000 mark, and he hasn't heard from either of the banks yet, and I don't think NICOM. So
That
he's pretty.
70,000 is over and above the 40, or it's? the
70,000
70
total
pledged.
over a 5-year
70,000
period.
Of the 85.
Yep. So we got
Might
45 up
be a
front
project.
and then 70 total over 5 years. So right now he's selling advertisements over a 5-year time frame. And so then, if they get it and we put it up in the gym, then we would just have our digital media class create advertisements, so they would show during the games, and that's what they would essentially be purchasing over the next 5 years. So, that was pretty cool. Didn't think it would quite take off like it has, but never underestimate Toby.
So our cameras will pick this up, the advertising, you know, go out over the camera.
Yep, so. That's about it for athletics.
So the camera at the football field, how'd that come about? I notice we have a camera out there now. For games.
That was last spring, I think.
That was part of your package that you approved
Yep.
last spring, the secondary camera.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
So that allowed us to stream everything then. So when we switched and went to the 80 package, which you guys paid for last year, and then again this year, I brought it up that it was gonna be over the amount. That included those 2 cameras.
Have all the football games been streamed on
Yep,
YouTube?
ever since we got it, we've streamed
I
everything.
didn't think I saw that on the YouTube page, but
Yep.
it was there.
Yep.
We wanna try to find a way to help with the audio. That was the only feedback I heard. People were watching, they said, God, we can't hear, we'd love to be able to hear, the audio. That seems like that would maybe require a little electrical work and a little speaker to go all the way out to that camera, because it's capturing the noise from the west side of the camera, if I understand right, which is away from, so just little things to work out, but it's a good picture. I mean, so pull that up if you're at a game or not at a game. And so it's essentially what the visual that you would have in our gym. It follows the action really pretty well, and
Were they interested in the noise or what the announcer was saying?
I think the announcer, they wanna hear who ran the ball and down and distance and those things.
Can't you hook it into his mic?
We're working on that. We're gonna see how we can maybe figure that out.
Does it have the scoreboard in the bottom?
Yes.
They wanna hear the music at timeout.
Oh, jeez.
I can turn it up. You shouldn't sit right there, Doc, or if it's too loud.
So I'm sure we
You're
probably
too
talked
loud.
about this, but no way it could be moved into the the Tartan gym for winter sports.
No, it's completely different. Everything's
Different
based
camera.
off of height and distance away from the area that it's recording, so.
So will it be able to record any of the track stuff or not?
I'm interested, I'm gonna try it. Someday at track practice, I'm gonna turn it on and see if it'll actually record it. If
We'll
it'll
just
go
turn it
out
on
or
and
not.
you go out and run around, see what, away from traffic.
I don't know if it'll record for that long. Alright, you're up,
You
boss.
won't be able to see the motion, right?
Moving too slow.
Man, I didn't know
Yeah,
the track
put
gave
flags
that much.
down. Okay, principals report.
Okay, so, one of the things we talked about last week was surveying the teachers. And, between the facilities and staffing the after-school program, those were two of our primary concerns. Is it something that teachers are interested in helping with? And if we, could find an alternative facility besides our school building? Those were the two things that we were surveying. So, I sent a survey out to staff, and you'll notice that we had 2 people say, yes, I'm very interested in helping with the program. We had 16 people say, no, thank you, and then we had 11 maybes. And understand that there's a lot of questions that people have about it, but we were more interested in, is our staff willing to help run this after-school program if we get running? And if we don't have a huge commitment from them, what other alternatives do we have? So the other question that we reached out to them was, if we don't choose to do it in the elementary building, or even the high school building, what other buildings do we have in the community? One building that Mr. Tar had brought to my attention a couple months ago was Zion. So I reached out to the Zion teachers, and even the parish council met a month ago now, I don't even know how long ago it was, but anyway, they politely declined my request of using their facility if we get this after-school program going. So then that threw the ball back in our court. Okay, if we don't use our building, what other buildings in the community could we use? And so the staff offered suggestions there, looking at a couple different churches, looking at the Watson building, looking at the public library, looking at the city hall, or even considering the Boy or Girl Scout houses. When I think about the daily activities that teachers do after school, there are several of them that have commitments in their classroom. So for us to say, we'll just have teachers give up their space to facilitate this kind of program, I would prefer that to be our second option versus our first option. And so that's why we reached out to the staff and asked them, would you be interested in helping run this program? And if we didn't use classrooms, lunchroom in the elementary school, what other suggestions do you have to move forward with this?
Can we give Zion some assistance
Yeah, so,
financially?
Well, that's state.
Required.
That's required.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, it's surprising they wouldn't help us out,
well,
just saying.
So what would be some of the activities for the after-school that are you thinking?
Well, I think we would want it to be academically steered. I mean, we don't want people to think that this is an after-school daycare for them. I mean, there's a lot of things.
So that's why I was asking.
Yes.
It's not an
Not
after-
a daycare, right, correct. I
Daycare.
mean, and through the, state, there are several grants that we can apply for, and there are lots of different hurdles that we have to jump through. But it is a very vigorous process to get this going, and, I don't know how much of a commitment it is for everyone else if it's not something that everybody at school is saying, okay, we're all on board to help with this. If we don't have the staff to run it, where else are we going to seek that help? Or, building wise. Those are just some of the concerns in the back of my mind that I have before I even pursue this any farther.
If we did, say we wanted to pursue this, and we were gonna try and hire additional staff,
Mm-hmm.
do it, how much additional staff would we need to have? 6, 8?
That's how many kids are.
It-
Yeah, it
I
does.
don't know,
What
dude.
age groups
Uh-huh.
they all
It
are.
depends.
It could be 100 kids, it could be 20 kids.
Correct.
What you're saying.
yes, it
When we
could.
did the survey last spring, there were 51 kids, I think is what it came back at.
50.
Have you talked to other communities our size that have an after-school program? And how, no,
Have not. The only, direct contact that I have with somebody who has done this is when I was at Administrator Days with Crete, and I listened to the director of the Crete after-school program. So, and they are fully funded through grants. Families don't pay a dime to participate in that after-school program. But, they have probably double digits worth of adults involved in helping, just because they have such a high number of students involved. They even feed their kids supper. They're like a 4 to 8 service.
Did they say what they pay their employees to work at this?
They did not, didn't elaborate on any of that.
Do the grants cover their wages? They do.
It's fully
Fully
granted,
funded.
Fully funded,
yep.
so it's-
But he also told me that if I pursue the program through the grant process, it is a very paper, demanding, there's lots of paperwork that is associated with it.
I didn't know if they had after-school volunteers helping supplement.
I
the
think
staff.
I think Crete gets college students to come help.
Do they?
We get Dome kids.
Mm-hmm.
So I know North Fork gets Wayne State kids and Northeast kids.
Okay.
Well, even just in this situation here, I mean, this isn't in your contract to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So, say you take this on, are you gonna be willing to do this for what you're getting paid now? I mean, you're gonna, I mean, you know,
No, and that's,
obviously not.
that's where I'd comment that our teachers are already, they have expectations beyond what some of them, feel, comfortable, doing to keep up with the requirements and the demands and then the stress of pandemic and everything else. And just the changes that just routinely are part of public education. So, yeah,
We're gonna have to go outside
and
our
Jen brings
walls.
up, of course, using our space, teachers really look forward to having a quiet, student-free space after school.
Sure.
So they, can,
well, this would just add to their plate.
bring the closure and prepare for the next day,
Like
bring the closure
preparing
that day.
for-
So it's
Yeah.
not that easy for somebody to just think, well, we'll just have teachers stay and do this in their classrooms. No,
Yeah.
we can't, we can't and we won't do that,
No.
to our people. So, so you look at other avenues, to make something like that work. Crete's not the, Crete's a whole different, a different kind of animal, but still good conversation I know that Jen had with that person. So at some point in time, whether we want to invest our time to go and see a comparable school district, a comparable community, this isn't automatically a school district responsibility.
No.
A comparable community that
Who has it?
provides,
My
some
great
service
niece
for
goes
that,
to one,
so.
But it's in a gym downtown, so.
See, I've always wondered, why don't we just, start school at 7:30, go to 5, and go 2 or 3 days a week?
Keeping kids' attention that long, younger kids would be really tough. That many hours, I would think.
Throw an extra recess
It's a
in
whole nother ballgame. There has been schools that have tried that.
I
There
just-
have been. I don't know, I'm concerned,
I've
like,
always
when they
thought
go
the
to 8
school
o'clock,
time-
you take away from family.
Well,
You know,
even-
that you want your family to sit down to their meal. I mean, there's a lot to go with this. Our community is small. Yeah.
So,
It's a great idea
Yeah.
in theory, but
Yeah.
you have to have the people and the facilities.
In all our spare time, we'll continue to pursue it.
Yeah.
But I'm not directing Jen to, okay.
Spend a lot of
Don't,
time.
you just lock yourself in your office today and work on this?
Yeah.
She's serving 180 kids and
Right.
20 staff members. So
Absolutely.
we don't,
It doesn't our.
we don't
I mean,
have
Yeah.
the resources that would be necessary to say, we need to make this happen. So, but we will continue,
You're right.
that's your
There's-
direction.
What about a compromise, like a school handy van or something that would take the kids that need to go to a daycare from school to their daycare that's in town?
Well, the local handyman already does that.
It does?
Yeah. Now I haven't met the new librarian, but Eileen's really good, was good, she retired, but, once a week, she had an after school, she picked up the kids
Sure.
and walked them
And I
from the
think-
school.
I think Tammy is continuing this
I,
program.
yeah, so
I know
there's
she
one
is.
night that we have a great library and anxious to meet the new librarian, but
To me, this could be a good program, and I think the school should be involved, but I think the outside people that would use the program need to
Absolutely.
show that they're willing to be as much a part of it as the school. You know,
I
'cause
would
they're the
just
ones
like
that are getting the
yeah.
benefit out of
I
it.
just like to see what other schools are size.
You're an optimist, aren't you?
I think that
Well-
would be,
I'm a
But
pessimist,
if
I
you
say
want
we
it-
bury it and move on. I don't think we're ever gonna get it done.
I agree.
I kinda agree
it's,
with you.
it's gonna be tough.
One, you know, it's an idea that, you know, I wish when my kids were younger, I wish it was possibly an option, but also I paid for daycare. I paid for it, you know, Desi Schwagering would watch my 3 kids anyway, and she did some nice programs anyway, and they were affiliated with Zion Lutheran Church, and you know, that was it, it was an expense to me. What we're basically offering here, or what wants to be offered anyway, is free daycare after school. And I understand that would be a nice thing to have, but at the cost of the school district, at the cost of personal time of our teachers and administrators and that, and it's only been one person requesting it right now. I guess, I don't know how much farther we wanna take this.
Yeah, so I agree. And there needs to be
No,
more
It's
people
been-
show up,
it's been-
step up from outside.
Until we hear more
For
response
sure.
from the community, and it's gonna have to be more than 10, anyway, I don't see a reason really to pursue this a whole lot further. Especially if the staff isn't willing to really buy into it.
Why would they wanna do it?
Exactly.
Well,
I
there could be
was
some,
wondering.
there could be some pairs that maybe want, earn some extra money.
Sure, but it-
They don't have to check papers and
Our
stuff
staff are
like
with,
that.
with our kids anyway for
8
8 hours a day.
Mhm.
You wanna be with them for possibly another 4.
Mhm.
I mean, those 4 hours should be my jobs.
There you go.
Right.
Sorry.
You're letting them off the hook. And the next thing.
But
in
the
line-
the only thing that the kids that it's gonna hurt though are the kids that's parents.
That
aren't they?
aren't.
Right.
You're
Good
right,
parents.
you're right.
It's like not saying that you're not home, it doesn't make you a bad parent, but you know, there's kids that probably don't get
That
fed.
need it,
You
such,
know,
right.
Them are the ones that it's gonna hurt not having it, but.
They want-
Okay,
Get the
I
whole
don't
one
have
done, so they don't have to-
$70,000 to, generate with playground funds yet, but let me tell you, we are running strong with this. So, still going strong with our apples, and I am excited to tell you that we've raised over $3,000 in the apples just in the last 4 weeks. There is a group of teachers, myself, and parents who are going to get together at the end of the month and create a parent-teacher organization for the elementary building. And that group's purpose is to generate fundraising ideas, brainstorm different options for playground structures that they would like to see us purchase, and then that group is going to kind of spearhead this project. And I am just kind of working behind the scenes to do some other things to help them get up and running, but ultimately I'm gonna leave all the decisions that come to what structures they would like to see us purchase, what fundraising activities we're going to do for this. This is a year-long task for us, we know that going into this, and the playground structures are very expensive, so I don't want it to be something that I'm going to decide all myself. So, in the meantime, I've also applied for a couple grants. Beth Ramald and I worked last week to put one together, and we got confirmation Friday morning that we received that one. So we're $3,000 ahead again, so we're now up to $6,000 for this project in the last month and a half. So there's other grants out there that we've applied for, and with this effort, we are hopeful that this could be a successful task and generate a lot of money for us by May. I mean, ultimately, that's our goal, is to work through the school year and see how much money we can generate towards this.
Is that where the malt machine comes in at?
Is that where what?
The malt machine comes in?
No, that was just, being here a long time and knowing that we used to have that, and I wanna use that as an incentive for kids,
Right,
so,
they used to have that
uh-huh.
a long time ago.
That was a big deal.
It was a big deal to get it.
Oh, at lunch? in the
Yes.
lunch
We have to have.
room?
a
Okay.
Yes.
ball machine.
Yep.
That was a tough thing to
Baby
do,
steps,
wrestling,
so
you
we
were
might get back to that.
Good job. Glad to hear you're having a PTO.
Yes, we are
Right,
gonna get that going.
Katie's not, if you need ideas,
Uh-huh.
Katie's on on the
Just buy
chipboard,
Jim
Laurel.
or something.
No, you had to pay
Just
$10
those little
to
mini
take
M&M
$10.
I know, they told me that,
She
we're,
said that-
yes, we're gonna try that next.
Amazed by that.
The only other things that I had on there are just some reminders about some things that are happening the rest of the month. We are going to do our family reading night at the end of the month. We, would love to see lots of families, elementary families, come and join us for that. It'll be a night of Halloween reading and games, as well as the preschools doing their little fun night as well. So we'd love to see lots of families come out and participate with that. It's at 6 p.m. in the lunchroom. Parent-teacher conferences was something that we usually always have a very successful 100% almost for every teacher. If they didn't come, elementary teachers reached out to teachers, and that's something that we boast about as well. I think that was about it for key things that I wanted to talk to you about in the elementary building.
Parent-teacher conference wise, I wanted to hit on that, cause last year we had 33% in this building, but parents show up, and I know COVID played a role in that, but I think my first year here, we were in the 50s. We had 70% turnout this year.
Wow.
So it was really good in this building. So I think that's kudos to our kids and our parents for showing up to that. Give you an update on our junior high and high school reading. We do that during homeroom, first period of the day. I put it in here on Wednesday last week. We were at 119 books and 36,000 pages read. As of today, so over Thursday, Friday, 3 more days, we're at 136 books and over 40,000 pages read. And that's just 15 minutes a day that our kids read. So they're doing a great job with it. Ice cream's a great motivation. All right, kids love ice cream cones. I announced 3 kids the first day, and I had 12 of them show up at the door with papers in hand, so it was a miracle. Interventions, we started that. So again, off of our MAP scores here in the fall, any kid that's not at grade level comes in during their study hall and gets 20 minutes of individualized intervention time. So we had, 55 kids in our ELA right now that are in here during study hall time, getting that extra help. So hopefully we see the benefit of that here in our winter testing. John Baylor was here. He presented to all of our kids in this building and to our staff, talking about preparation for college, the importance of routines and how to create good schedules and making sure that we set ourselves up for success. So it was a great message for our kids to hear. And then he kind of shared that same message with our staff, so that way they understand what he talked about, so they could kind of repeat some of the same things in class. Mr. Peter's been doing a bunch of counselor financial planning nights. I think every other Wednesday he's been going through and meeting with senior parents and helping them get FAFSA filled out and going through college applications and a whole bunch of different stuff. So there's been a lot of those events going on. Last thing I wanted to talk about was work-based learning. And so something that we went to administrator days over the summer, and one thing that I really enjoyed listening to was schools that do a work-based learning program or a Friday type of college. So Northeast offers Fridays at Northeast, where kids can go and they take about a 3-hour class, and it's every single Friday for a full year, or they can do a semester and they earn 3 credits. And so one of the schools I talked to, what they do is they don't have seniors come to school on Fridays. And so seniors either sign up to go to Northeast and take a class, or they're able to get them on a job site and actually have them do work-based learning, where they're doing that trade, learning that skill, and getting involved with it. So that is something that I wanted to look at trying to implement in the spring semester, and see if we could make that a possibility to get some of our seniors on job site training and get them some experience. I guess some of the things I've looked at, trying to figure out what the benefits would be with it. I mean, they're gonna look at strengthen their academic goals, technical, career, and readiness skills, exploring different career options, enhance personal finance knowledge, foster relationships with adults, observe all aspects of a company's operation, and develop awareness of requirements for that job. I guess my big thing is I want to get kids into a field if they think they're interested in it, And yeah, they either develop a love for it, or the other kid that says, no, I absolutely hate this, I'm not gonna go to college and spend thousands of dollars to get that degree. The school I talked to, actually, Mr. Peter and I went to Battle Creek and met with their counselor and talked to them about how they have it set up. They've been doing it for 3 years now. And they have 57 kids in their senior class, and I think there was 20 that take classes at Northeast, and then another 37 that are on job sites. And so they said placing them is the hardest part. But looking at us having 18 seniors in the building, I was looking at what they're kind of interested in. We had English and writing, radiologist, pediatric nurse, microbiologist, occupational therapy, business, criminal psychology, telecommunications, mechanics, a pilot, and a vet tech. So those would be things that they were looking at. I also went to a commerce meeting last month, I believe, and just mentioned it to businesses to see if they would be open to having kids come in 1 day a week and be a part of their business and be able to learn that, and it was well received, I guess, on their end. But right now we're just working on hammering out some of the details that go with it. So I know a lot of the things would be how are parents informed about this, and so we would create a handout, have a meeting with parents and the students to go over all of our expectations and what it would be and explain the whole program to them. We'd have students apply to get into the program. We'd have students set up and placed in businesses if they wanted to do the actual work-based learning. And then we would have a meeting with the business and the student to go over expectations, you know, your dress, hours, attendance, attitude, safety procedures, all that stuff. Then they'd have a training agreement that they have to fill out, and then of course your consent forms for students to be able to do that. So overall, what it would look like is essentially our seniors not being here on Friday, and they would either be at Northeast gaining college credit, or they're going to be actually working on a job site, gaining those skills and those trades.
So is it gonna really mess up your scheduling to get all their courses in so they can have every Friday off, like when they're freshmen, sophomore, juniors, so they can, you know, is it gonna tighten up your scheduling and getting all their classes in and the hours, the credits that they need to graduate?
No. When we talk to them, like the schools that have done it, Bancroft, Rosalie is doing it, and Battle Creek are the two that I've talked to the most. And it really didn't affect their schedule, it's just a matter of committing to it. Talking to Mr. Lure at Battle Creek, his way of explaining it was, you just gotta rip the Band-Aid off and try it, because it's very out there thinking, and the fact that kids aren't gonna be in the building. Those seniors, you know, being eligible would be part of this. If you're failing 2 classes, you're not gonna be going out on job site and doing that. So yeah, we'll have 1 or 2 seniors in the building, but teachers are gonna give them projects that are not easy and not fun. So that way, the motivation is that they're going to get their grades back up and be able to go get that.
I am so glad you weren't my principal.
That sounds awesome, I know. So I wanna back up a little bit of questions, probably more as an AD. How's the
Yeah.
drug testing going? Without, you know, naming any numbers or anything, but is it all flowing good?
Really good,
No problem.
yep. We just had 2 more tests this morning. And we've tested 2 people a week throughout. Kids have gotten to the point where they just kinda understand it, they come down. We haven't had any red flags or anything along that line. All the results come back typically on Thursday is when I get them back, and then he sends me a new list. So I mean, it's been pretty flawless, pretty easy going, and really, students have just adapted well. Students have been great this year, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it's been, if you walk in the hallways and stuff, our kids are doing really well, so.
Great. Alright, thank you guys. Yeah.
The only question I have with that outside deal, how does that work for like if they have a football game on Friday night? Cause I remember back in, if you don't go to school, you can't play or whatever. So
that
that
would
was
be-
in school while
Yep.
you're there?
Yep, so it would be treated the same way if they're going to a job site or whatever. If they say you have to be to work at 7 o'clock, cause that's when that job starts, yeah, you don't get to sleep in till 8 o'clock and come to school like everybody else. You're gonna be at work at 7, and that's why they have a supervisor. You know, you get one strike, you're late once, fine, but if you're late twice, then you're back in school every single Friday. So, there's some pretty, you gotta have it that way.
Boss
Otherwise,
isn't even on
kids
time
use-
that often.
Need some extra harvest help then?
That's what I'm saying.
Every Friday, so you need harvest help.
Does anybody wanna specialize in leveling bands?
I was wondering if anybody wanted to specialize in digging post holes.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay, president's report. So you guys all got an evaluation form in your packets, so fill that out before next month's meeting. And then at the end of the meeting, I suppose we'll go into closed session and compile them into one sheet and do our discussions and then I'll present that within the next week afterwards to Dr. R. So that's all I have, so. Well, thank you guys though for all the work you're doing, I guess you're really getting after it, doing a lot of extra stuff, promoting our school, doing things on the outside that, some people I'm sure are saying, well, shouldn't the school be paying for that? You're doing a great job, thank you. The superintendent's report.
Okay, I'll head to Lincoln tomorrow, on behalf of the board and take copious notes for, Labor Relations Conference. The PPA let me know that they are ready to meet, and so, as soon as,
Harvest gets over next month.
yes, we may wanna meet before then, but, so negotiations team, get ready. We'll meet several times, likely, over the course of the next, couple months, but I'll
Usually
bring back.
what we do is we meet, they give us the first offer, we might hash once or twice back and forth, and then, that's the end of that first
Yeah,
meeting,
yep.
so.
I think we were 2 meetings, 2 years ago, got it done in 2 meetings, but really enjoyed that the board and the teachers, are interested in a 2-year agreement. That's always kinda nice, with a couple of caveats, but nice to just take care of that 2 years at a time, which is becoming more and more popular, in school districts. So, I will bring that information back to you. And then your state convention is November 17 and 19. I need confirmation ASAP if you plan to attend. That's a Wednesday noon through Friday noon. So it's 2 nights downtown Omaha at CHI. So I already registered you, boss. You have no choice, so. But certainly, it's the best board development that you could receive, really, and it is good for us as a team to spend some time together formally and informally, so. So please let me know ASAP if you plan to attend. If I don't hear from you by the end of the week, I may just reach out and say I need a yay or a nay. I don't wanna assume it's nay if I don't hear from you in the next day or so. So you saw the bill for the smart boards, they are in, and now we come with a little bit of a task to mount those. So Gil and Mr. Schmidt and, I don't know who else he's necessarily employing, Tom, obviously. So those will start going up. First one's been, installed, and so I think we'll look forward to, taking you to a classroom, maybe as early as next month, to have a teacher demonstrate that for you. I mean, you need to see what that significant expense looks like and sounds like. Just so you're aware, we hadn't had any ELL students, that's English language learners, so these are limited English speaking students. We've had none all the years I've been here, essentially, and we have 3 now, within a matter of days, get 3 students. And so we're very fortunate that Mrs. Clemens is an ELL certified, or she has that endorsement on her teaching certificate, and she has some time in her schedule to work with these students. However, these students are immersed into a schedule that is appropriate for their age. And so our teachers are doing a great job. limited in skills and working with, having a student in their classroom that doesn't speak English or very limited. So we're working on getting as much resource and support for our whole staff in this building to serve those students.
They're all in the high school.
They're high school kids?
They are, a freshman and 2 sophomores, 2 freshmen and a sophomore.
I have a kindergarten.
2 freshmen and a sophomore.
Only knew 2
So
kids.
it's awesome, they add something to our environment, but it is, as you might imagine, quite challenging for them and for our teachers,
Absolutely.
to be honest with you. So, Kelly survived the audit last Thursday. I made her take some time off Friday. So the audit is done, so they'll be working to upload our AFR, as required by state law. So, we're increasing the amount of our surveillance significantly throughout our building, so we're gonna go from about 50% surveillance to I think over 80% surveillance, indoor and outdoor. You probably don't even notice, new cameras that have been placed around, so, that's very helpful. It's all about student safety, and primarily somewhat aligned with the drug testing. It's a deterrent, kids know. We don't have locks on our lockers, and that is uncommon, I believe, in any school. And quite simply, the reason we don't is because we have 4 cameras up and down that hallway. And so if something happens, it's very simple for us to find out, and kids know that. And so that's just, and in our buses as well, we don't have surveillance in our buses, we need it. And so I'm checking on that. Thankfully, we don't have a fleet of 20 buses. We've got a fleet of 4 or 5 buses and a couple of vans.
Do we have one camera that they move around or can move around?
I thought we had one when I rode the
I
bus.
thought we had one at
It
one
worked.
time.
Would there probably was.
It was
fake,
because
I
I
don't
believe it. I know we had
It
it.
really worked.
We do have some things in the front of some of our older buses that look like there's a camera in there. So yes, summer project update, so, I said I need to report to the board tonight, boys. Tell me what's, because we still have a wall that needs to be finished. Gail's growing some great grass out there, by the way. So the pad for the garage, we haven't started digging yet. So obviously, some of our people are gonna be working in the cold of winter to get that finished. I said, what do you want me to tell them? He said, middle of next week. I said, the whole bid, middle of next week. Probably won't be done. Good boys, very busy, but I'm at a frustration point that really things aren't done yet. Including some of the finer finishing details on the retaining wall. But
I'm surprised they didn't pack the backfill. I mean, there's some big settling spots.
Yep, and Gail's gonna take care of that.
I know, but he shouldn't have had to.
Yeah,
You don't wanna do a whole lot of packing though against a new concrete wall.
yeah, he didn't wanna drive right next to it, but anyway, so we let Mother Nature kinda take care of it, but you're
That's what
right.
you gotta do.
But we had to get that grass seed going, looking at the weather, so it was the right time to do it, but we'll get it. The track is done, hasn't been lined yet, we haven't paid for that. Part of me is thinking now let's wait till the spring so the lines don't get weathered, one less winter weather, I don't know. I don't know when they're planning to come line it.
Lupita told me on the 10th, so.
Lupita said October 10th.
Just dirt.
Anytime after the
They're running out of paint.
Yeah.
Just dirt.
Yeah.
I don't know when they'll be here, but they won't be here before the 10th.
Yeah. So at any rate, track hasn't been lined yet, but it did cross my mind to say, why don't you just hold off till next spring, but we probably don't wanna tell them that. So there's an enrollment summary and meetings out of district. I did wanna bring to, board's attention, I did ask, our local newspaper editor to make a correction, of some, misinformation that was in the paper a couple of weeks back. One of them, and part of the reason we did a survey of teachers, cause one of them was that teachers are gonna staff this after-school program. Well, no, no, I don't believe that was ever said, and so we didn't want our teachers thinking that we were committing them to some after-school program. And then there was a $100,000 difference in some information with regard to our budget, and so I kindly asked the editor if he would correct that, and he did. You may have noticed in the paper a couple weeks back indicating that there was a misunderstanding. Well, I'm not sure it was a misunderstanding, it was more misinformation. But that information was put in the paper, and that was good to have that. Okay, that's all I have.
A typo in a headline.
That's all I have.
The story was correct, by the way, just. You
Yeah,
left that
yeah,
one out.
yeah,
So
but,
I got one question on the wall and the ramp out here. How come they didn't put the little design deal on the one going up along the ramp? That wall.
trying to save you a little money,
It looks stupid though now, doesn't it, kind of?
trying to save you some money.
Look the other way.
Yeah, well, they should have just not designed any of it or did it all. I think it was dumb.
I didn't notice. I walked up it.
I didn't notice.
You didn't? I did.
Should be pushing a wheelchair or something anyway. if you're going up there, so. All right, is that it? We're adjourned.
I was too busy writing the name